The iPhone 16e has arrived, and while it's an obvious step up over the now discontinued iPhone SE, the new model still represents a step down from the base model iPhone 16. But how different is it really? In this video, we'll be walking you through the key similarities and differences between the iPhone 16e and the iPhone 16, paying particular attention to areas like design, display, cameras, and performance. At the end, we'll share our verdict on which model you should buy depending on what you're looking for in a smartphone. So, let's get into it. With the iPhone 16e, Apple has finally abandoned the old iPhone 8 style design of the iPhone SE and brought it in line with the rest of the current iPhone range. As a result, the iPhone 16e looks quite a lot like the iPhone 16. Indeed, the two phones are almost exactly the same size, and the 16e is only 3 grams lighter than the iPhone 16. Both phones have that signature flat-edged, curved corner design, which has been a staple of many iPhones and many other phones since the iPhone 12 in 2020. What's more, Apple hasn't compromised on build quality with this new, cheaper model. It too is made of aluminium and glass, with a ceramic shield covering the display, while both phones are IP68 certified. While the iPhone 16e doesn't have the same colour-infused finishes as the iPhone 16. It only comes in black or white, while the iPhone 16 comes in black, white, pink, teal, and ultramarine. Perhaps the biggest design difference between the two phones relates to the look of their respective camera modules. The iPhone 16e only has one, while the iPhone 16 has two. The selfie cameras are also different in appearance, with the 16e going back to the old Face ID notch and the iPhone 16 getting Apple's dynamic island cutout. The latter takes up less space on the display and features a neat animated widget system that provides subtle heads-up information for things like timers and music playback. There's also a notable difference on the right-hand edge of these two phones. While both have a remappable action button in place of an old alert switch, only the iPhone 16 has a dedicated camera control button for quick and tactile access to the core camera functions. Both the iPhone 16e and iPhone 16 pack a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display with a slightly disappointing 60Hz maximum refresh rate. There are, however, some subtle points of difference between these two panels. For one thing, the iPhone 16 gets a slightly higher pixel density than the iPhone 16e, which can be attributed to that smaller dynamic island component. But the more important difference relates to brightness. While the 16e can hit 800 nits in typical use and 1200 nits in high brightness mode, the iPhone 16 can go well beyond those figures to 1000 nits and 2000 nits respectively. As we mentioned in the design section, the iPhone 16e only has one rear camera to the iPhone 16's two. Apple has, however, upgraded that single camera since the days of the iPhone SE. It's now a 48 megapixel fusion lens, much like the main camera on the iPhone 16. They're alike, but they're not identical. The iPhone 16 also gives you an advanced center shift OIS system, which is capable of keeping shots steadier. This basically means it can take superior nighttime shots and smoother videos. The iPhone 16's extra camera is a 12 megapixel ultra-wide, which opens out a whole variety of landscape photography options that the iPhone 16e simply doesn't grant access to. It also helps the iPhone 16 capture better portrait shots, as it can use the two cameras for superior depth calculations, not to mention macro shots. Spatial photos and videos are also only available on the iPhone 16, again thanks to the provision of those two cameras. Both phones feature a 12 megapixel selfie camera on the front, with autofocus for locked-on selfies and integration with Apple's brilliant Face ID system. On the performance front, there really isn't much to choose between the iPhone 16e and the iPhone 16. Both run on Apple's speedy A18 chipset and are backed by the same 8GB of RAM. But that's not to say they're internally identical. The iPhone 16e runs on a binned version of the A18 chipset with a 4-core GPU to the iPhone 16's 5-core GPU. In practical terms, it's highly unlikely that anyone will notice this difference in performance, especially since both phones share the same 6-core GPU, but on paper, the iPhone 16 has the slight edge for high-end games. With such similar hardware, combined with Apple's extensive support for all of its devices, the software provision for both phones is nigh on identical. Both run on the very latest version of iOS, which is currently iOS 18, and the iPhone 16e also supports Apple Intelligence, just like the iPhone 16. That's significant because you don't get Apple Intelligence on the iPhone 15, which is actually more expensive than the iPhone 16e. Apple never confirms the size of the batteries in its smartphones, but several third parties have now confirmed that the iPhone 16e has a 3961 mAh battery, while the iPhone 16 has a slightly smaller 3561 mAh battery. The larger size of the 16e's battery can be attributed to two things: the absence of a second camera and the inclusion of a new, smaller C1 modem. Apple says this homemade modem is the most power-efficient modem ever on an iPhone, and while it's definitely smaller than the Qualcomm modem used in the iPhone 16, our testing showed that the battery life on the two phones is largely comparable. Apple rates the iPhone 16e for 26 hours of video playback, which is about 4 hours more than the iPhone 16. In testing, we got around 24 hours of video playback and sometimes as low as 12 when using the 16E more intensively. So it all really depends on how you plan to use your smartphone. Both the iPhone 16E and iPhone 16 boast decent battery life, and while the newer model might last slightly longer, we wouldn't suggest you buy it for that reason alone. On the charging front, the iPhone 16 fares slightly better than the iPhone 16E. Both phones seem to support 25-watt wired charging, but when it comes to wireless charging, the 16E only gets 7.5 watts, while the 16 supports 15-watt MagSafe charging. In fact, the 16E doesn't support MagSafe period, so you'll have to pick up a MagSafe case if you want to use the phone with MagSafe accessories that you already own. So, where does that all leave us? On paper, the gap between Apple's two most affordable phones has never been narrower. The iPhone 16e and iPhone 16 look very similar, and they perform at a similar level too. The iPhone 16 does, however, continue to hold the edge in a couple of ways. It's got a brighter display, a dynamic island notch, superior camera stabilization, and a dedicated ultra-wide lens. It also features a slightly faster version of the A18 chipset, as well as support for MagSafe wireless charging. Meanwhile, the iPhone 16e holds two advantages. Firstly, you'll get slightly better battery life from that Apple-made modem, but the second, more significant advantage is that the iPhone 16e is a fair amount cheaper. It's still not cheap, but it's certainly a strong alternative to the iPhone 16 if you're looking for a no-frills iPhone that will last you just as long as Apple's pricier models. Do you think the iPhone 16e is worth the money? Let us know in the comments.